Hello, peace be with you.
I'll give a quick introduction. Father Beau Schweitzer. He offered us his reflections on last year in COVID and the ministry of SALT to the Benque community. He's the chancellor of John Paul II Junior College and the parochial vicar at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Parish. And he comes virtually with us today to speak on the OLA Adventure, Outdoor Leadership Adventure, which is an annual, basically camping trip that the students go on to experience the beauty of nature. So Father Beau, please, you can take it from here.
All right. Well, first let's do an audio check. I want to make sure that you can see and hear me. Let me know in the chat or by unmuting if we're all together. Okay, I see a thumbs up. I'd like to involve everyone as best we can. So in the chat, I'd like you to respond to this question. What are some of the challenges that are affecting the students in your respective institutions? What are some of the hardships that they encounter that make it difficult to pursue an education at your school? And I'll go ahead and type that question in for anyone who will be joining us a little late.
Father, would you like these answers messaged only to you? Or
no, send them broadly to everyone. That way we can all have a conversation. What are some hardships your students face as they pursue their education? This might be an old statistic, but the last that I saw, 60% of students at the tertiary level in Belize drop out before graduation. That's a really high number. And it indicates that there are a lot of challenges out there that make education difficult for them. And Mr. Joseph, if you are there, we'll begin soon the Outdoor Leadership Adventure 60-second video. So we're seeing in the chat, and this is from Miss Anna Mary, many first-generation college students, financial hardship, working full-time while going to school to become a teacher, more than full-time, excessive credit loads, domestic abuse, distracting culture, financial issues and lack of foundation come from Miss Anna, as does tumultuous home relationships. What I'm going to be talking about and showing with you, and hopefully we can talk about it together, is something that we stumbled upon at John Paul II Junior College. It's called the Outdoor Leadership Adventure. And before saying anything more about it, I'm going to show you a 60-second, kind of silly and rather flashy video that'll just give you some images so that you have more content in your mind as you picture this outdoor leadership adventure. So Mr. Joseph, if you can, run that little video. So the video has been placed in the chat. And Mr. Joseph can, oh, Dr. Gonsalvo? Miss Anna Mary, I think that you are the host of our meeting. Would you be able to play this video that has the
Oh,
link in
let's
it?
see. Sure. I was just trying to give him or somebody co-host.
Oh.
But if it's in the chat, let's just see. Okay, he linked it. Yep. Just give me a second, please.
Sure.
This is your living room / yoga shanti / regional office.
I think
Sorry,
there's maybe
just-
an advertisement at the beginning of that YouTube video. And
Okay, I'm ready whenever you are.
Let's go for it.
Okay.
/ and this is the basement /
All right, thank you very much. That concludes the video, and we can go back into regular video mode. Thank you very much, Ms. Anna Mary, for stepping in and playing that for us. The outdoor leadership adventure it's the first class they take in their curriculum, and our first year students are, with great reluctance on their part, brought into the Mayan Mountains in Mountain Pine Ridge in Belize to spend together 6 days and 5 nights in the Belizean wilds. And they build their own tent cities, and they form teams, and those teams take turns cooking to keep us all alive. And they break into smaller groups, and they spread out and go to a lot of exquisite sites in Belize, caves and waterfalls, and it's extremely physically demanding. We get them up at 5 in the morning, and if you're a cook, you might need to get up earlier than that to have breakfast and ready, to have coffee ready, because we want to get on the road hiking before the heat of the day. So the goal is to be on the march not long after 6 a.m. as we spread in different directions. And they climb down into steep valleys, and they summit mountains. The third tallest mountain in Belize is right there. And before we leave, there are often tears. Why are the students crying? They're crying for a lot of reasons. They're scared. They don't want to leave home. They're going to be without their phone. And these kids have not been away from a screen in their lives. Some of these students have never slept outside of their own home before. And so their experiences in life have not prepared them for anything like this. We tend, for our partners in COBEC from the US, one might think that kids in Belize are more hardy and capable outdoors. The grandparents did a lot of their work outdoors, farming and harvesting gum sap and such in our neighborhood. But the kids do not live in that reality, nor do they aspire to. So this pushes them way beyond their comfort zone. And what's so beautiful and ironic is that when it's time to leave after 6 arduous days where they've been bathing in the river, they cry again. And I see more tears at the end than I do at the beginning, because many of them don't want to go home. and none of them want it to end. What we've been talking about transformation, what happens in this transformative process, and what can your classrooms and your institutions do to different scales and in different ways approximate what's happening in the outdoor leadership adventure. I'm going to look at it in four ways. One is their relationship with themselves. One is their relationship with others. One is their relationship with nature. And one is their relationship with God or a higher power, whatever their belief structure might be. Our students tend to not have exposure to silence. And when they're out there and there's no electricity and they don't have their phone, if there's noise, they have to be the ones making it. And so they find themselves on these long walks in silence. And we pause and we have different talks that we give them along the way on goal setting, on leadership, on different virtues that will help them to succeed in tertiary programs and beyond. And they think about those things, but we try to apply them to life. And so they think about their life. And it is unbelievable how rare and golden silence is. They have the opportunity to do soul searching. Socrates, such a father of education, started with know thyself. But it's hard with the constant whir of information and the power of curiosity that moves us from mode of entertainment to mode of entertainment. They get to spend a week inside their own skin. And that can be a haunting and terrible place, but also a really transformative place. Also, we're finding in Belize, and it's a global phenomenon. It used to be in the 70s that I think it was 59% of university students were male, and now it's about reversed. And men tend to drop out a lot more than women in school, and they tend to get a lot poorer grades. There's something about getting out into the ruggedness of the outback that helps the guys feel like men, because they're splitting firewood and they're having to carry big logs and they're working together in teams. If you historically look at civilizations across the world, those relationships that tend to be the strongest are things like the bonds between a mother and a child, or the bonds between a man and a woman, or groups of guys that get together and build big civic things like roads and dams. And that's kind of lost with youth today as we all live together behind our screens. They have the opportunity. We don't tend to know our physical limits or capacities. And so these kids will sit at the bottom of a valley and they'll think, I'll never make it to the top of that mountain. And they do. And the secret is, although they hurt and they're exhausted, they just take the next step, one step at a time. And if you can keep persevering and take one more step and persevere in that, you're going to reach the top. And it's the same thing when you're having to read a challenging text. You've got to read one more paragraph and one more paragraph and one more paragraph. And if you do, you're going to come to the end. If you're writing your essay, you've got to go, okay, follow my outline. What's the next point? I need to develop that. And then what's the next point? And I need to develop that. And we start to develop people with greater persistence and resolve, with more grit, who can go farther and give more than they had thought. That which was daunting becomes accessible to them. There's not much of a space within tertiary education for students to come to know themselves in silence and to be tested in diverse ways. Our classrooms can carve out spaces for that. It'd be interesting to hear what your experiences are on that front as your classes help work towards growth and transformation. their relationships with one another. This is crucial. Most kids in our community don't come from educated families. They are forging forward, and they're the first to do so, and they might not get much support. And oftentimes the expense of being in junior college, the cost benefit doesn't seem to be there for families. We have immediate needs now. You should be working. I need you to be buying stuff for us. And here you are going to school. Because they're not supported a lot at home, they develop, when they're out there conquering challenges together, a real sense of camaraderie. They become a cohort, they become a team, and they learn how to work together to do things harder than what they could have achieved by themselves. And so many of them adopt an ethos of, we're gonna do this together. We're gonna graduate together. We're gonna go all the way. There's a point on the last day of the outdoor leadership adventure where they climb this waterfall that looks so scary and daunting. They don't think they can do it, but with teamwork, they can. And it becomes analogous to the journey to trying to get their diploma from John Paul II Junior College, that together they can. So we've had students that have applied and gone to their first class, knowing that they're not going to have a second class because they have nowhere to live. And then they make a friend on the outdoor leadership adventure who gives them a place to stay. And suddenly there's a support network that wasn't there before. Something else that's quite innovative about this is the professors go too. And so they learn that their professors care enough about them that they're going to sleep on the ground for a week in the rain and the cold, because the professors want to be with them and want to challenge them and want to know them. We have a lot of professors who are volunteers, and some of them come from outside of Belize. It's a great introductory way for those foreign-born professors to get steeped in Belizean culture by spending day and night beside those students, walking with them through the wilds. And it's not just the wilds of nature, but it's also the wilds of the interior of the challenges that they face. Because at the end of the night, we have a big campfire and everybody shares. They share a struggle that they faced in the day. They share a moment of grace or beauty that they beheld. And they begin to open up to one another, building bonds of trust. And out of this comes an open sense which allows for a more free flow of ideas and a greater exchange of experiences in the classroom. As a school that has a liberal arts education, the kids talk about ideas a lot, but it can be hard to pull their thoughts out into the public forum. It can be scary to be wrong. It can be hard to find a voice. And after spending a week together, it's as though they've spent a year together because of the adverse conditions that they're in. And they're not afraid one another anymore. They're comfortable with one another. They've cooked together and they've slept together and they've bathed together and they've conquered adversity together, and they're willing to share. So it creates, Mr. David mentioned the silo effect that is common in Belize, where everybody does their own thing in their own little silo. This helps open up students and makes them more willing to share, and that makes the process of learning much more dynamic and much more existentially engaged. They experience care, and they experience a sense of mission. A lot of times, young people feel aimless. There's purposelessness, or, I'm just doing this because I need to get the job and I want to get the money, but my heart's not really in it. And I'm in this program because somebody is pressuring me to sign up. As they go inside of themselves in the silence, as they adopt the mission of trying to help each other get to the finish line, they find meaning in relationships. Then a third area is the relationships with nature. Our students have watched nature programs on TV and have an affinity for nature, but it's not a nature that's been experienced with the real senses. And so our first classroom is planet Earth. And our first classroom is watching the shooting stars and coming to appreciate the dynamic rhythms of the world around us, the sunrises. And in the fog, like we had at John Paul II Junior College this morning, there's an eerie glow of all kinds of colors as you see the peaks transform all around you. And it opens you to a sense of wonder and mystery. We're not in the safety of my house, but we're in a world that is vast and expansive and so far beyond me, and I'm so very small. And it seems as though this creation is ordered and intelligible. The rhythms take place each and every day. And it gives us a different sense of who we are as brothers and sisters in a common humanity who are on a pilgrimage in this world together. The scope and power of it brings one to silence. The scope and power of it make you ask different questions about life and what my role is within it. And so we come to care for nature in a new way, in an experiential way. And we want to preserve and protect Belize because we know how glorious it is out there. We'd be willing to sacrifice for it. We get to know the majesty of the fashioned world around us. And finally, it can press our sphere of relationships beyond self, beyond others, beyond nature, even into being itself. What created all of this? And how is it that it's made in such a way that I can survive out here and I can know it with my senses and I can engage it? So there comes this great dialogue between being or God and who I am as a creature in this world. And as a Catholic institution, we celebrate a Catholic Mass as the sun is setting. And most of our students aren't Catholic. And I would think, and the Mass is a complicated entry point for someone who doesn't know much about the faith or is not a person of faith. It's rather complex, and you stand and you sit and you don't understand why people are doing what they're doing. And there's, phrases like Lamb of God that mean nothing to you if that's not your background. And yet there's something inherent about the human condition that wants or needs to worship. And so we see forms of worship arise universally throughout humanity. And these kids often don't have experiences of worship. And they find Mass, even though they might never go in town, in that environment, as they've been living a life that's more contemplative, more relational, and more physically demanding. Yes.
If you could conclude your presentation in about 2 minutes. We're running a little bit behind,
Sure.
so we can move.
Thank you,
Mr.
Joseph.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, so they come to awaken to all of these things. And so to conclude, I'd like to read this little reflection that a student shared. And then I'd like to invite you to be able to consider how it is that in your institutions, you might be able to serve or awaken not just the life of the mind, but the whole person, so that we can be closer related to one another and be more dynamic and beautiful human actors in the communal sphere. So Maria writes, the outdoor leadership program worked a miracle in my life. Before going there, I thought the program wouldn't reach me. I was wrong. In just 5 days, I went through a significant change. I came back home with a completely different attitude. There are no words worthy enough to explain the change. I returned feeling whole, relaxed, and with more energy. I've discovered another part of me that I never knew existed, and I learned that I was a lot stronger than I had thought. How many young people need this right now? I've gained a feeling of worth and an appreciation of my physical strength, which have reflected upon my emotional and spiritual strength. I was pushed beyond my limits in this program, and I triumphed. For years, I've always thought of myself as someone weak and vulnerable, a person incapable of cherishing memories and holding on to friendships. Recently, I had been meaning to change because of all those terrible traits I possessed. My own behavior and character made me depressed. I knew that seeking God was the way to change, but I couldn't reach out to him. There were too many distractions and too much noise that amplified as the days grew darker and harder. All these things had silenced the pure desires of my heart. I realized that some part of me didn't want to change. That is why I incessantly refused the invitation to go on the program. I had fought to stay at home. To be honest, I knew I would like the outdoor leadership program, but I feared I wouldn't change. Once I was there, I had hours of placid reflection. I had good people supporting me, not excluding me from their groups, and not tempting me to do things that would taint the purpose of the adventure. The environment reminded me that there was still natural beauty left that had not yet been destroyed by man. The pure friendships developed between teachers and fellow students gave me faith in humanity. The speeches given by teachers and students in the daily masses secured my hope of a better future, far different from the saddest moments of the past. I'd recommend this program to all young people, especially those who need a peaceful place to find themselves. Young people need to get away from all distractions and escape to a place that will better them. Adolescents have all this energy. We need to use that energy for something good and worthwhile. We need God in our lives. He's now a stranger to all of us. God needs to be introduced again into our lives in a place of peace, nature, and beauty. Outdoors is where people come to appreciate the gifts of God, and with the absence of technology, we can truly open our eyes to what we miss out on with all modern distractions. Only then do we realize that there is so much more to life than all of the things we are used to. This adventure will help people who are lost or have strayed away from the correct path. This adventure helps young people find themselves and find their home, which is in the arms of God. My friends, I hope that all of you and all of your institutions become a place where students can belong. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Father Beau, for sharing the vision of John Paul II Junior College of holistic person-focused formation and exposure to God's beauty and nature. Thank you, Father.